What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 38 of Convos on the Pedicab. We are here once again with InfoWars correspondent Jon Bowne. You know, our president, he told us 100 days of mask wearing, so I'm out here, I'm wearing a mask, I'm slowing the spread, and I'm just following our president's directives. Anyway, Jon was gracious enough to come back and bless us with his presence. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Isn't that right, Jon?
We do. We certainly do. We have a whole lot to talk about.
So, Jon, you guys worried about getting shut down? Because I remember you talked about this when I was giving you a ride back after our first episode. And so I want to know, like, what your thoughts on this.
Oh, by you guys. What do you mean by?
Like, InfoWars and Alex and all that stuff.
Just
yeah.
want to make sure they knew what
you
we were talking about. Yeah. I think Fox News, I mean, you turn on Tucker Carlson, and Tucker Carlson is worried about being shut down. So I actually think we'll last longer than Fox News because we are now we've created our own underground, and, you know, we're there for you if you come and find us. You can also find me at dailynewscollective.com, which is my own little wormhole. But, you know, we have to create – we're in the digital ghetto now, as Matt Drudge said when he came by InfoWars, and we are truly there. You know, this is, you know, last time I was on the show, things were like, it's all kind of like, well, you know, are we kind of making things a little bigger than they are? What, you know, things will work out, right? No, we're at a point now where, especially with Joe Biden in office, that, you know, everything, there's no telling what's going to happen next. And it's not just getting shut down. It's being surveilled by the federal government. I mean, you've got John Brennan, from the former CIA guy, talking about, just right there on the news, just talking about coming and hunting us down for loving our country, basically.
Well, so I want to kind of like elaborate on that too. And I think that while you definitely should, like, you know, keep track of and try to stop domestic terrorism from happening before it happens, you can't use domestic terrorism and white supremacy and racism and extremism as a way to shut down like healthy disagreement with what the government and what giant mega corporations are doing. And that's kind of what these people are trying to do. Like,
I hate that we even have to have this talking point, you know, because I'm just some guy, man. You know, you're just some guy. He's just some guy. That guy walking across the street is just some guy. There's some lady over there. That's who we are. We're not surrounded by white supremacists. You know, I mean, you might as well be talking about aliens. You might as well be talking about alien beings have landed. They've now assimilated into the population. And, all right, yeah, there were prejudiced people. Yeah, I grew up north in Kentucky. I saw prejudice every once in a while, but, you know, I was born in 1971. That's when we started. And then when desegregation happened, we all started the busing. The way I grew up and when I was younger, I was in Washington, D.C., and there were kids from. I had kids from Ghana. I had kids from parts of South Africa. I mean, I had kids from all over the world in my class, but I didn't ever think of anybody outside of who they were. We didn't think about it was Martin Luther King when he had said, judge somebody by the content of their character. So all I'm saying is this talking point about white supremacy and the fact that Joe Biden gets on there and acts like it's the scourge, the literal word he uses, a scourge of America. Do you disagree with me?
No, I wanted to kind of explain. Like, I want to explain all this shit, though.
I love everybody, man.
Well, Jon,
and everybody loves me.
Jon, I want to kind of explain. I want to explain why this is happening. Okay. And it's because it's not really
I'm not falling for it,
and I don't think it's not a white supremacy thing. It's an identity politics thing. And if you remember Occupy Wall Street, the Occupy Wall Street movement got pretty heated in like 2008, 2009, 2010. Like through 2011, it was a very heated, very tense movement, and it was people on the far left that were the biggest, that were really the ones pushing this. And so what happened, like around 2011, 2012, or in that period, it's a bunch of like liberal and leftist news articles started pumping out article after article about identity politics in order to basically hijack the leftist movement and put it back into the hands of the corporation, because it's a lot harder to hold, Wall Street, big tech, big pharma, and big oil accountable when people are fighting within each other about microaggressions. So I think that the idea of identity politics on every side of the equation is just cancerous, no matter where you are. And I think
it's all by design.
Yeah.
It's all
and
by
then
design.
It's cancerous because it gets us to fight with each other, and it prevents us from uniting. And a united public is what happened on GameStop with Reddit. Like, that's what a united public looks like. And then the other thing too is that you talked about InfoWars lasting longer than Fox. I agree with you, and here's why. And it's because cable news is dying. I saw a segment on The Hill just now or yesterday, and
do you know the ratings, like the current ratings now? That I know that CNN has dropped by like 40%, but I wonder, where Fox is ratings-wise.
Well, it dropped a lot after the election because everyone started going to Newsmax and OIN because of what happened with the election.
And they're scared to death over there.
And they're scared because of the loss. They could get wiped out by Dominion and Smartmatic, which is very possible.
But it seems like maybe I shouldn't even. I guess I shouldn't
share with the class. Go ahead.
I'm just saying. It seems that if they get into lawsuits with these people, that everything's going to have to come into discovery.
And so then you'll know for sure if we have honest elections. So I think that would be that could actually be a good thing for our country, no matter what the outcome is. But another reason why they're pushing this white supremacy stuff is because the news ratings are dying, right? And these journalists need to get people to click on something. And you need to create an invisible boogeyman. Like Glenn Greenwald had a whole discussion about this. Trump was the best thing that happened to CNN, Fox, MSNBC, NPR, like every single major Donald Trump was every single major newspaper outlet's wet dream.
And they can't stop. They haven't been able to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, this whole impeachment thing is.
It's just another way to get clicks.
You got to keep him in the circle.
You got to keep getting. You got to keep getting.
And as soon as he did that with his SAG card, it's like, oh, did you see what Donald Trump did? Oh, it's just everywhere.
Well, that's why Marjorie Greene is becoming the new boogeyman. It's not like she's that scary or that much of a threat to
Josh
anybody.
Hawley
it's just they need something to write about because they're desperate, and these major news outlets are literally losing their ratings from it. So I think honestly, the best way to fight these people, as strange as it sounds, is to just ignore them. Do you know what I mean? It's like when you have you're a parent, right? Mm-hmm. So, how old are your kids?
I have one child, and she is 12 years old.
Okay. When your daughter was like 3-4 years old, did they ever throw a temper tantrum in the grocery store because they wanted a candy or a chocolate or a game or a video game or something like that?
I have a very exceptional child.
Okay, I'm happy for you, John.
I saw other people's children doing that.
You saw that, okay.
And I said to my child, man, don't do that.
No, I understand.
I don't know what their problem is.
I understand that, but I mean,
that's true.
What happens to the – all right, so – a kid's throwing a temper tantrum at a store because they're not getting what they want from their parents.
It's a really
right?
good example.
Okay,
yeah.
So what happens if you give the kid what he wants because he or she is crying and throwing a tantrum? What does it do?
It just
reinforces the same shit, right?
Yeah, 10 minutes later.
So then what happens if you just ignore it and you just don't care?
It doesn't happen.
It just stops because there's no attention. There's no desired outcome.
But so then they get neglected, and later in life they hate you.
No, they don't. That's bullshit. They become healthy, happy, well-adjusted adults normally, or at the very least, they're not throwing temper tantrums at GameStop trying to get a video game. And we're not bringing that up because of the whole stock frenzy.
I think you should give them the wrong thing.
Hey,
I want a popsicle, and you hand them a wrench, and then they're just like,
that's nice, yeah. Having a thing that just write popsicle on a piece of paper.
They look at that wrench and they're like, I got to figure out how to make this into a popsicle. And then you've given them something to do.
I think that's actually not a horrible idea, but ultimately the point that I'm bringing up is that if you sometimes the best thing to do to address a problem or to address a nuisance, because that's what the news media is right now, is a giant nuisance. It's just to ignore it.
Well, it's beyond a nuisance now too. It's become it's almost like I hate to go into their game and start making comparisons to the dictatorships that our world has experienced and all these characters, and it's easy to bring up Hitler and Mussolini and Stalin and use them as examples, but they're in some cases they're really good examples, and you know, a lot of what we're seeing now is what's happened in China with their media and with Goebbels, you know, in Nazi Germany, and they're just browbeating us every day. You know, I mean, who did they go after? They went after Greece. The movie, or the movie, or the 1977, I think it was 77 version of Greece was on BBC, and then a bunch of people had a problem with it because it showed a white man acting like a man. You know, you've seen Grease. And so Olivia Newton-John had to come out and say, it's just a play. It was a lot of fun to do. It was the 70s. It's about the 50s. Yeah. And so my point is that it's every little damn thing they're browbeating.
That's desperation. It's desperation it's desperation to cling on to a dying
But to your
outlet.
point, I don't care. I'll probably now go home and listen to Grease and turn it all the way up. I haven't listened to that album since I was a kid. Probably watch that movie with my daughter now that you brought it up. And that's the thing, is I'm not paying attention to anything any of you are saying. You just look crazy.
But that's the other thing too, you know. The more people pay attention to this, click these articles, either A, believe it, or B, start arguing with one another about it, you're literally you're playing into the hands of what the globalists want, is for us to argue with each other about Greece.
Well, I'm not arguing.
No, I know, but we're not. But I'm just giving an example.
Well, no, if somebody came to me and they had problems with it, I wouldn't defend it. I'd be like, you're nuts.
Hey, man, that's fine. I respect how you feel.
I mean, that's the entirety of my debate. You are cuckoo.
No, I agree, and I think that also when it comes to this, did you read that Time magazine article about that they released about the whole Trump election and stuff?
Yeah, it's a long article. But yeah, I'm digging into it. But yeah, they've changed. You know, it wasn't a rigged election. It was a fortified election, saying basically that everything social media did and the corporate media and you know, that pretty much drove. You know, for example, Hunter Biden
they made that disappear.
They made it disappear. They made all kinds of things disappear, and they did influence the election that way.
Hey, John, can I say something?
At the very least.
Can I say something? So it's not that they rigged the election that you can definitively say, but they hijacked the narrative of the election for the American people,
right.
And a whole bunch of events were kind of used to do that. But one of the things that they also said was that when it came to interacting with information they deemed to be harmful, they also found out that the more you criticize and the more you fight it and the more you get angry at it, the more that little spark turns into a fire, the more that fire turns into a blaze, and the more that blaze becomes uncontrollable, right? And so the same thing also applies to when CNN or the MSNBC or even Fox News or a mainstream publication or The Guardian or whatever starts coming up with a bullshit divisive talking point. The more you engage it, the more that you become consumed by it, and the more likely you are to deviate from actually creating a pro-human future that all of us want on both the left and the right.
Yeah, and it's it's funny you bring that up because can we go to the Bitcoin now?
We're
talking about pro-human future, and the thing is we're at this crossroads right now, and it's the blockchain is in the hands of globalists and it's in our hands at the same time. And most people don't understand about the blockchain and Bitcoin is that basically back in the day we traded gold and gems and silver for stuff, and then it was paper currency and coins, and it's gradually become digital, and now we're going full digital. And Bitcoin is, I won't totally go into it now, but what Satoshi created, if that's his real name, it's a system that you cannot penetrate from the outside, and it will continue to have, it's just there to make people that invest in it wealthy. And so it's a transfer of wealth. So with the blockchain, not only are we going to see in a pro-human future, not only are we going to see a transfer of wealth, and as our economy, the fiat currency, continues to corrode and become meaningless, and those other countries, especially China, when it takes over and becomes the reserve currency, which the United States, our dollar is a reserve currency, but China is going to take it soon. And so what's going to happen to us is we're going to owe all this money, trillions of fiat currency, but then there's going to be all these people that put into the blockchain, whatever that may be, whatever it is you invested in, and you're going to be able to save yourself. That is if the Great Reset and China haven't already prepared for that to happen. So, I've heard things like China owns our entire electrical grid. I've heard things about they own more than 50% of Bitcoin. I've heard things, about the United Nations and the Great Reset being a way to get ready for the switch that's about to happen in the blockchain. But this is the revolution. And the one last point I make about the blockchain is the blockchain can be used for many things. It pulls the power of the government out, pulls that third-party system out. It's just me on one end and you on the other, and we're making an exchange. So if you make one end completely, the integrity of an election, the voting on one end, completely impenetrable, you cannot rig that election. And on the other end is you, and now we're voting through the blockchain, then we have honest and fair elections again. So that's a really pro thing.
I also heard something that David Knight said that the blockchain stuff was actually not a good thing, and that people are going to be begging for that to be fraudulent. But I don't know too much about that.
That's what I'm saying. That's where we're going. That's all I'm saying is that's where we're headed. We're not. People need to start getting ready for that, getting their minds ready for that, because in the next 10, 15 years, it's almost like we're at the beginning of the internet all over again.
Yes, but I also just out of curiosity, and I want to talk a little more before after I ask this question. But what do you think is going to happen as a result of the reset? Because based on I've been listening to a lot of people in the World Economic Forum talk about all this stuff, and I've also been reading certain documents about the World Economic Forum's view of cryptocurrency. And the World Economic Forum is really praising the use of crypto, specifically Bitcoin, Ether, Litecoin, XRP. Those coins are being highlighted at length. So if those coins are being highlighted at length, that means that a lot of big institutions and a lot of these billionaires are going to be heavily invested in it. Meaning, if they are heavily invested in it, the value of those currencies will go up. So if you're owning Bitcoin, if you're owning these cryptocurrencies, if you own stock in certain green energy companies, if you own stock in the processing manufacturers, if you start buying shares in green transportation, if you start investing in alternative farming and biofuel companies and all that stuff, you're going to benefit exponentially from the Great Reset. So I think that the reset is one of those things where you're going to have a shift in wealth from one sector to another sector. And the fact that all this stuff is being laid out to the public means that a lot of us have a chance to profit share tremendously from this. And if we're profit sharing from this and we wind up having assets and we wind up owning stuff and we wind up benefiting and we wind up keeping ourselves aware and positively contributing to how we can change for the better, then we will get a pro-human future and we will not get an anti-human tyrannical government, which seems like there's a possibility that could be what's in store if we are not aware and collectively communicating with each other positively, which is why it's so important to have a message of love that you spread to everybody.
In the words of Band of Gypsies. Yeah, absolutely, and that's why it's very important for us to start spreading this message so people are ready for what's about to happen. And I'm not even sure. I mean, I can't even tell you what's about to happen, but I do know that, the United Nations and the World Bank and Davos and Bilderberg, they've all been pushing for basically, to use the term, a mark of the beast system. And when you have a cashless society and they are in control rather than us being, actually what the blockchain really does is nobody's in control. We're all individually in control. That's the way it's supposed to be. But they're seeing it coming, and there are huge global foundations that are putting billions. You'll see 30 million today, and then 12 million today buying up Bitcoin. But can I tell you a Bitcoin horror story though?
Oh, sure, yeah.
All right, so back in, I guess it was 2010 or 2009, 2010 probably, maybe 2011, Max Kaiser would come to the station a lot. Max Kaiser is like the guru of Bitcoin. And he was telling all of us, the guy literally stood right in front of me and told me to buy Bitcoin. And I had just come into a little bit of money that week. And so I could have put a few $1,000s in on Bitcoin at, I think it was somewhere between $8 and $100.
And you didn't do it.
I didn't believe in it. And there's a lot of people, and right now, I'm just guessing how much. Let's say I put $4,000 into Bitcoin in 2011. How much money do you think I'd have right now?
You wouldn't be on this podcast, that's for sure.
I might.
Yeah,
I might.
you'd be in some mansion or some little mountain or you'd be having like some rural like.
I'd be living like the Hobbit.
Yeah.
I'd be surrounded by books.
You'd be in like a fortress or something like that, you know.
I would be just smoking a pipe in a hole in a hill.
That's a beautiful thing to do, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Fishing, fly fishing.
Yeah.
But millions. Possibly $1 billion.
But you didn't know. It's not like it's like buying the right Pokemon. You know what I mean? It's like it could have been Pokemon cards.
Yeah. But the point of my example is that there are a lot of people that feel the same way about it now, and I feel completely secure buying Bitcoin now because I monitor it daily, and I notice how many people buy into and how many people are supporting it. And you're saying they're putting money into it. Everybody. That's anybody is putting money into it because you either go get a summarized version of the white paper and then you look at it and you go, oh, this isn't a pump and dump. This is a totally different, unique.
No, this
animal.
could really be the game changer, especially with what's happened on Reddit and with the Wall Street bets and stuff.
Sure.
And I think that what happened on Reddit is honestly the greatest. It's the start, okay? Because it's nothing really happened that much from it. A few people got rich because they got those diamond hands. A bunch of autistic apes were just buying up GameStop and holding the line, right? But what happened really is it's going to be the start of what will be the greatest revolution of our time, and there will be no bloodshed as a result of it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, and I think that it's done a lot of really great things too. It's gotten a lot more people. The amount of Google searches for like investing and investing knowledge has like skyrocketed, which I think if you're going to have a pro-human future, you need a financially educated public. And that's why when I ran for city council, one of my platforms is the fact that I was going to try to conduct 2 town halls per month. And not me personally, because I'm not qualified, but I wanted to have a relationship with certain people in the financial community in Austin to teach financial literacy programs, like teach people about the stock market in like bad neighborhoods, right? And my district was kind of in the hood.
Yeah.
So it would have been like a really good thing to do. And I think that that's a really good positive thing that's happened. And also a lot of people have really been woken up to the fact that we don't really live in a capitalist economy. And you also realize that a lot of the income inequality that we're dealing with, that a lot of people on the far left have been addressing, and good on them for addressing this. The way that we're solving this problem is not going to be with socialism, but it's going to be about with beating them at capitalism. And that's why everyone is so freaked out. That's why people at the top were shutting down trades on Robinhood. That's why Janet Yellen and Maxine Waters are talking about going after the roaring kitty on Reddit instead of really going after Citadel and Melvin Capital. Even though they're being mentioned, you're making roaring kitty almost more of a target than you're making these hedge funds.
And there are a lot of leftists out there that think they're a lot smarter than what you just said, but I'll tell you the truth. Hegel and Marx, the Hegelian dialectic, which is 2 properties synthesized to create the outcome, they were supposed to put Marx was supposed to take what Hegel had done, his dialectic, and synthesize it into what we thought would be socialism or communism, but it ended up being more capitalism. So really the only only answer for humanity is basically fair capitalism. We're creative beings. We work, we toil. We like to do that. We love to do that. I mean, we're supposed to all get rich and just sit around and stare at the television? No, we're human beings. That's not how we work. That's not how this works. So I hear all the naysayers sometimes when somebody's making such a positive, good point. And I want to make sure they got to chew on that too.
No, I agree. I do think that as humans, though, we are also it is human nature to constantly strive to do better and build and build and build and build. And that's why people are like most happiest and most fulfilled and better people to one another when there's a purpose that they're striving for, be it career-wise, be it athletically, be it creatively. When you have something that makes you want to get out of bed to do something, you actually, it generates and gives you life, right? But there's also a double edge to this, and it's that because of how we are wired to always constantly want to build and build and build and have more and more and more and more. And because we are the planet's apex predators, we have a very serious risk of building ourselves into our own destruction.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So there is a balance that you have to pay attention to. And I don't know if you saw this movie, but I was watching this documentary before I saw you, and I'm about like maybe a third through, and it's a Michael Moore movie, and I don't know how you feel about Michael Moore. He's not like, he's
Roger
good and bad, right?
Roger and Me was great.
Yeah.
It was a huge influence on me.
But I saw Planet of the
Humans.
Humans. Watch Planet of the Humans, and it talks about like climate change, our environment, and how like the push to green energy.
Got my Roger Moore look.
And how the push towards green energy is not really doing very much, if anything, to actually help our environment, because we're using the same principles of overdevelopment to just pursue a new brand of energy. Like you're having solar factories or solar farms or whatever, right? Like yeah, so basically like solar plants. You're basically deforesting. You're using deforestation, and you're demolishing a forest to create a solar plant. You know what I mean? Or you're like doing the same type of mountaintop removal that you would to furnace a coal plant to start mining cobalt. And like the electric vehicle stations are still using natural gas to charge their vehicles. And there's so many like holes in terms of the electric vehicle industry and the whole part about climate change that you got to wonder, like our environment is fucked. How do we fix that? How do we like come together and actually fix that? And it might actually mean like, hey, we might have to actually chill out on developing stuff.
Oh, sure. I mean, when I was a kid, there was a lot of pollution, and if you're not careful, you'll end up with what happened with the EPA during the end of the Obama administration, where they opened that mine up and just polluted the Animas River in Colorado. I mean, there's all kinds of things that we do as mankind that can screw up the earth. And also, we do rape and pillage the earth. It's true.
Yeah.
But everything's so politicized. The whole Jen Psaki circled around finally about the about the pipeline, all the pipelines. She's saying we're considering taking down all the pipelines. Well, the thing, and just real quick as an example, Joe Biden has been pushing this whole the hoax about good people on both sides thing. That he used that during his campaign, so he's able to get up there and lie to you. And since he's the patriarch, since he's the president, and he knows more than we do, then we're all supposed to believe this lie. Trump never said that about people on both sides. But the reason I use that as an example, because now they're using that for the pipeline, where they're saying that they know better. Well, the thing, and we all know that the pipeline actually reduces the carbon footprint by 40%.
Wait, how is that possible? I kind of want to hear.
Because you have to truck it, or you have to put it on a train. You still got to move the oil.
You have to move the oil.
Still got to move the oil.
But there are also other problems too when, in terms of how they install these pipelines. And these companies will install pipelines on people's land without their permission, and they will utilize eminent domain to run through farmland land, and they'll put it through the water supply. And if you don't start addressing eminent domain when it comes to this, then what are you going to really say?
They built a highway. My family had some land back in eastern Kentucky, and they built a highway. It had a cemetery on it, and they had to build a highway right through it. So I know all about that. But there's no perfect answer. But all I'm saying with Joe Biden as a leader, at least treat us like we're sitting at the table. We're not all sitting at the kids' table, man. At least talk to us. But it's like he doesn't even have all the facts either. I just make this point about Joe Biden, a prediction. I predict you're going to start seeing Obama gradually. He's going to be like a groundhog that comes out of the hole, because he's so egotistical and megalomaniacal that he's I'm starting to see things that show that he's actually the one pulling all the strings.
Well, I don't think it's just Obama. I think it's Obama, Bush, Clinton. I think it's like, I mean, one of the CNN contributors or MSNBC contributors compared like the inauguration to the Avengers coming back. You know what I mean? They called he called
sure,
Bush
yeah.
and Clinton and Obama
Yeah.
like the Avengers with their friend Joe Biden, and I'm like, that's not the Avengers. That's literally the Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
You know, becoming reunited. But the fact is.
But
you
I
know,
think
it's not
we're
really,
gonna
it's not
see
really
Obama.
Obama isn't making any decisions.
No,
He's a puppet too, though. He's a
I'm
puppet too.
I know, of course, but I'm just saying that as a result of his little status, I think we're going to actually see more of Obama over the next 4 years, and I think it'll just
I think at the end of the day, you got to look at this.
We're only 2.5 weeks into this thing, man. It's already a nightmare.
Well, in a lot of cases it is, but in some cases it's not the worst. Like he did sign an executive order for more COVID stimulus and more COVID relief, which is good.
Yeah.
And who knows? Maybe his stuff will actually help small businesses. You know, I'm keeping my fingers crossed right now. Who knows? But there is a possibility that it could help small businesses. They've talked about forgiving the student debt. My girlfriend has is fucked when it comes to that. Yeah. So if he does that, it's like, okay, man, that's actually like not everything you're doing is bad. The problem is though, the first thing that the Biden administration was doing was trying to impeach Trump, and they're signing executive orders to have like, you know, guys play on women's sports teams, and then then they enact these like really extreme policies with the pipeline. And I don't like oil pipelines at all. I hate that shit. And if anything, I'm kind of sad that he didn't suspend the permit for the Permian pipeline, because that's way more dangerous, in my opinion, than the Keystone pipeline, especially since that pipeline is being used to sell our oil to foreign countries. It's not even being used to actually help us in Texas, much less America, right? But the problem is,
our civilization is, you know, and he
did this with no plan.
Without oil.
Yeah, but he did this, right? Like Joe Biden cut this project off, right? And I'm not like, you know, I'm not gonna like, you know, throw a hissy fit because he stopped the oil pipeline, right? But you could have done this better, and you should have an actual plan in place as to how are you going to help the 11,000 workers that aren't going to have jobs, even if these are temp jobs. Like, what is the plan to help them? Like, what is the plan to give them another source of income? Well,
it's a domino effect.
Like
it actually affects up to 1 million people.
Well, and also like the bartenders and the restaurants and the small businesses in those communities. Like, what are you doing for those people? Like, if you're going to cut a pipeline permit, you're going to cut an energy project.
It's the same old answer. They'll all get jobs and
learn to code.
Yeah,
but what I'm saying though is this, right? Like, if you're gonna like, I think that in the future, because you might have to cut some of those projects to save our planet, right? That's a possibility. But if you're gonna do that, you have to like have a package that gives relief to like the restaurants and the clothing stores and the shops and the local pharmacies, and you have to have a pre-planned relief package to help all of these like small businesses in those oil towns to stay afloat. Because if that doesn't happen, you're gonna get like way more right-wing extremism as a result of that. Like, if you want to stop that, have a plan to help people, and that shit will stop.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, absolutely. As far as right-wing extremism, I mean, they're calling anything right-wing extremism now. So, you know, I'm apparently a right-wing extremist. Like, this is news to me. You know, I mean, I'm about as far from a right-wing extremist as you can get, but according to what I do and what I say, I am.
Listen,
so.
I mean, probably at least half the people that you would call right-wing extremists, they would have called them communists or radical socialists 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, these labels are just being used to demonize people who are vocally and intelligently in disagreement with the mainstream narrative. People who question things and do it and try to do it from a place of intelligence, it's a lot easier to demonize those people.
Well, the people on the right, the people on the right are just curious, and that gets them into trouble because they get hooked up with QAnon and start believing
that bullshit.
Jewish lasers from space, you know, set fire to the California. She never said Jewish. She said some companies that were owned by Jewish people, but that they automatically turn it into that. And then on the left, it's this bleeding heart. You know, everybody is evil because of their skin, and you know, you've been privileged your whole life, and just this madness on the left. So. And then on the right we go out too far because, you know, we believe some guy named QAnon is some it's like Monty Python when God would appear in the clouds. I mean, and that's just not. You are. I hate the word QAnon actually
because
anymore.
a guy with a Q.
I work for Alex Jones. I'm a contractor for Alex Jones. That's about as close a person to QAnon as you're going to find, and he's a real person. He's a real person. Don't trust the plan, trust that man.
Well, the problem with trusting the plan is it literally creates a culture of passivity. And when you trust the plan, you sit on your ass on your computer typing.
What
plan?
There
is no. But anyway, what I'm saying.
Well, the thing is,
there is no plan because
I didn't trust anything to begin with. That's where I was coming from. So why in the hell would I trust some stupid plan?
Yeah.
I don't even know where it came from. Oh, but it came from up here in the defense. Well, then I got a bigger problem with it.
And also, if you have a Q clearance, if you have like a Q security clearance, what the hell are you doing typing random shit in a message board on Reddit and 4chan? What the fuck are you doing?
Creating QAnon? Causing the Capitol riot to happen? That's what you're doing?
That whole thing was ridiculous. But I mean, Alex was also disavowed QAnon for a long time too.
Something that hit me during the Capitol riot. I used to live in Frankfort, Kentucky, which is the capital of Kentucky. And it's a really boring little city. But one time we had moved to Lexington, Kentucky, and we took a school trip back to Frankfort. So we went to Frankfort, and there's nobody in the Capitol building, and I already knew the Capitol building, and so I wasn't really that impressed. But the kids that I was there with were all teenagers, and some of them ripped off the blind man that was selling pencils and Cokes. They say, oh, I gave you a $20 bill when they gave him a dollar bill, And then some people even vandalized parts of the Capitol. So, and we weren't insurrectionists. We were just stupid kids. And so, for me, what happened in the Capitol, there needed to be more police. And you had 1 million people there at least. And they failed to do their job to keep basically what looked like to me the same kids that went to that Frankfurt Capitol went to the
these guys weren't terrorists, they were retards.
Yeah, that's it.
I mean, that's really like the majority of them. There are problems with what happened though, and the problem is that you could have had some guy who worked for and I had this on one of my.
Plus,
I had a cybersecurity.
A lot of people are under the impression that Capitol belongs to us, which I'm pretty sure it does. Well, and nobody got hurt. As far as Congress people got hurt. And now Ashley Babbitt, who gets shot in cold blood, the guy that shoots her isn't even going to be
prosecuted. Yeah. And then, also a police officer died. The whole thing was a mess. But what actually did kind of make me a little worried, and I had a cybersecurity expert come on the podcast to talk to me about this. I don't know if you saw that episode. But basically what we talked about was the fact that you could have had some guy who works for China or works for some foreign company or who's an adversary that storms the Capitol and takes a bunch of compromising stuff from a congressman or a senators or somebody in the intelligence community's desk or something, and it could have your banking info on it. It could have a bunch of Bitcoin stuff on it.
Sure.
It could really that could really fuck up a lot of our livelihoods because somebody hacked the wrong thing. So that was more concerning to me than I think that a bunch of people being mad and mobbing a building.
Well,
what I mean?
If you went in there and stole Pelosi's laptop, then you need to be there. We have laws for that, and there's probably federal laws against that. And that person needs to be found and blah blah blah. But now it's just here's the woman with the bullhorn who was out front telling people to go in. We've, tonight at 11. And now today, just on the way over here, Roger Stone, CBS News. Tonight, Roger Stone seen outside with members of the Oath Keepers. What was he directing them to do? Was he telling them, was he a general telling them to go up and storm the Capitol? Was he giving them codes?
John, that's also clickbait. That's also mainstream media.
Mainstream
but that's mainstream media desperate to hang on.
What I'm saying
mainstream media is like pets.com, dude.
Roger Stone didn't do anything. Bank of America.
Hey,
Bank of America turned over all those people's.
Yeah, I know. Hey, John. Before we go though, we got to and this is how I want to wrap up. I'm sad we didn't get to talk too much about Bill Gates, but Charlie has to go. Maybe for next time, or if you have your little thing that you're doing, invite me. We'll talk about him buying up the farmland and all that stuff. We'll keep the audience in suspense. We'll talk about Bill Gates next time. Let's wrap it up on this. What do you think Trump's legacy was after all this Capitol stuff happened?
I think he just completely. I don't want to make a derogatory thing out of it. I'd rather make something positive out of it. But just the way because I don't mean a derogatory thing. It's just he changed everything. And so being born in 1971 and going through Nixon, Carter, Reagan, the Bush years, Clinton, Obama, and then Trump, to a lot of people, especially my age, it was just this huge breath of fresh air that we finally had a voice. All these years of just being told to shut up, finally we had somebody in there, but they ate him alive, man.
Yeah, I mean, I'm disappointed with a lot of this stuff. I think Donald Trump could have done a lot. A lot of good could have really come out of these. I think we saw
how,
and there could have been a lot more involvement locally.
Well, the division is more about, we saw a really bad side of a large portion of this country. We saw how many people love this country, and we saw how many people despise us for loving this country.
Yeah, I mean, there was also a lot of bad behavior on the Trump side too, and then you look at after the election, there was a lot of people were just spreading bullshit left and right.
There's a hell of
and they're just
more people in the middle,
that guy Ryan Fournier is oh, they're gonna overturn Arizona, and I'm you're just lying to people and giving them false hope. That's fucking toxic. Or people are saying, oh yeah, Trump's still gonna be president, or Pence is gonna overturn this, and all this bullshit was happening, and then Trump organized. I mean, I don't know if he organized, but he definitely catalyzed 1 million people to show up at the Capitol. Donald Trump helped mobilize that. He played a role.
He's the president.
Yeah, he's the president. He played a role, right? And then when all this stuff happened, you had people that were willing to take a bullet for this guy. And then what did Donald Trump do? He just abandoned a bunch of people that were willing to take a bullet for him. And then when it came to the pardons that the people he could have pardoned, could have pardoned Snowden, you could have pardoned Assange. Dude, Assange got this guy elected, and you didn't pardon the person who got you elected. And if anything, you had tighter and more stringent whistleblowing laws under your presidency for journalists than even Obama did. And everyone's oh yeah, this guy's fighting the deep state. He's on our side. And I'm no, he's not. All he did was he took the mask off so people could see how bad things are. But Donald Trump is not that guy is not the answer.
And a lot of that's happening.
The answer is us being the answer is us having a collective pro-human future. But Donald Trump is not the guy you look towards. Donald Trump just was the start of taking a mask off, just like Bernie Sanders helped take a mask off for a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's about removing a mask and getting people to understand the insane level of corruption that exists within our government and within our corporatocracy. So that's my take. And I honestly, my opinion is this, right? I think that if you had to figure out who do you think a better choice was to be president, Trump or Biden, Trump was probably the better choice, and I'll say that, and I'll stand by that opinion. But maybe it's not the worst thing in the world that Trump has gone, because now everyone can kind of see things a little more for what they are. If Trump were still around while this GameStop shit was happening, you'd probably see a bunch of people on the left that would be shilling for Melvin Capital. And because Trump is gone, everyone's collectively agreeing with each other about how fucked up that whole situation with Robinhood was. So, I mean, I think that maybe Trump being gone could help, give us a breath of fresh air that we need so that we can collectively move forward towards an actual positive pro-human future.
Yeah. I hope that we stay awake and that the rhetoric tones down, because you saw AOC couldn't even tell Ted Cruz, I agree with you about.
They should be having that meeting. This affects the American people.
You tried to murder me,
Yeah, but you know what? The best thing to do, it's like a crying child at the movie theater.
Literally.
Ignore it. Just ignore it. That's the best way. The best way to deal with this stuff is to just ignore it.
It's going to take another 3 or 4 months for people to calm the hell down.
Hey, the best way to help people calm down is to calmly dissect the events going on around them and then try to offer positive advice that will help them benefit. And that's why, we'll wrap this up real quick with this. The guys on YouTube that are giving financial advice, that are explaining in depth what the reset is about and who these people are and what Bill Gates is actually doing from a monetary and fiscal standpoint, those are the people you got to listen to, because these are they're setting up guidestones for you to help make your own decisions and piggyback off them. Because if you can piggyback off them and wind up being okay and sustainable, they can't boss you around.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Anyway, this has been an all-new episode of Convos on the Pedicab. Hopefully this is a positive way to kind of bring everything that's been happening full circle and address what what's happening in a logical, clear-headed type of manner. But thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time.